Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A Globe and Mail expose over the weekend laid bare the devastating reality on Victoria's Pandora Drive, or Pandora Avenue, where addiction, death and chaos are spiralling out of control under this NDP government. Even Victoria Police, like Detachment Inspector Connor King, a strong supporter of harm reduction, now admits it's worse than ever. The Premier said safe supply and supportive housing would save lives. Instead, he's created taxpayer-funded sites where drug use is rampant, crime is routine, and people have no hope for recovery. Mr. Speaker, will this Premier end this failed experiment and replace it with a treatment-focused housing that bans these deadly drugs and restores law and order to communities like Victoria?
Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to thank the Leader of the Official Opposition for his question. We know that when communities have challenges and when they face encampments, the best solution, the best way to address them is through housing. In the case of Pandora, the members should be aware that last year we had over 100 people in the encampment there. Because of the supportive housing that we brought on, because of the fact that we scaled up so many housing options, we now still have 19 people. And I appreciate that 19 people is still too many, Honourable Speaker. That's why we're going to continue to work with the local government. We're going to continue to work with our partners. In fact, after the situation around a paramedic facing violence last year, we put together a table where police, health officials, Ministry of Housing, local government officials, all of our not-for-profit partners meet monthly to talk about what we can do to address the challenges that every individual is facing in that community. But we know the supportive housing works. And I know the Leader of the Opposition started his question with saying, with some doubt that supportive housing maybe doesn't work. It works. It saves lives. It gets a lot of people out of the streets, out of the encampments, and helps them reconnect with family, helps them reconnect with employment. Honourable Speaker, we're going to continue to scale that up to support communities throughout the province.
Member Supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, an interesting response from the Minister. Considering that residents are smoking and injecting fentanyl in taxpayer-funded housing units, and BC Housing is confirming it. Police are constantly called to these buildings for standoffs, trafficking and weapons. Just last week, they seized a kilo of fentanyl, a loaded handgun and $40,000 in cash from one of the Premier's so-called supportive housing sites. And yet the NDP still claims, as the Minister just did now, that this is helping people and moving them towards recovery. Mr. Speaker, will this NDP government stop destroying lives, be straight up with British Columbians, admit its policy has failed, and shut down these drug dens?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Surely the Leader of the Opposition isn't talking about closing down supportive housing throughout the province. Surely he understands that by doing that, you're putting people's lives at risk. If he needs advice or if he needs some guidance on how important supportive housing is, he should just turn around and talk to his housing critic, who, as the Mayor of Surrey, was a strong advocate for more supportive housing. In fact, told other mayors about the value that it provides a community. I praise the critic for housing for her leadership when she was the Mayor of Surrey, because she understood what supportive housing meant. It made a huge difference in her community. It's making a huge difference for people in other communities. And as for the arrest, Honourable Speaker, as I said earlier, we have a table where police, our not-for-profit providers, all of our health officials, everyone sits together. And when challenges arise, we work with our officials to be able to take steps to address that. And that's what's happened in this case. We don't want to see people that are preying on vulnerable people in supportive housing, outside of supportive housing, on our streets, and we'll continue to work with law enforcement to ensure that doesn't happen.
Member for Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is the side of the House that does believe in housing, but allowing rampant drug use and setting up situations that are ripe for exploitation by drug traffickers isn't supportive. Mr. Speaker, the government has scoffed at recent warnings from U.S. officials about fentanyl production in British Columbia, calling it trade war rhetoric. But Canada's own intelligence reports confirm that foreign government-backed gangs are using BC to traffic drugs to the US and beyond. A BC man was just charged exporting enough fentanyl out of Vancouver to kill 750,000 people. Last fall, the RCMP pulled 54 kilograms of fentanyl and 390 kilograms of crystal meth out of a super lab in Falkland. It's only one of 47 such labs that the NDP have busted in the last 6 years under this NDP government. Organized crime, cross-border smuggling, and chemical super labs are a national security threat. Will the Premier continue to hide behind trade war rhetoric as an excuse for his inaction, or will he finally admit that the explosion in drug production is also a provincial security threat?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. This government is working very hard to fight illegal drug manufacturers, and the Premier, our Premier, has been leading the charge here and in the nation's capital. This is yet another example of the BC Conservatives parroting the talking points of Donald Trump. They don't apply here. We've been working with provinces across the country to stand up to Trump and his tariffs.
Members will come to order.
Meanwhile, the BC Conservatives continue to ignore the goal of Canada being the 51st state. We're not for that. We've opposed all of their actions. We've matched their tariffs, removed alcohol from BC liquor stores, and in some
members
over there even
Minister has
voted
the floor. Minister, continue.
to not condemn Trump's tariffs. That's what we do. We condemn them. We're focused on getting people with addictions and treatments that they need.
Member supplemental.
There we have it again, Mr. Speaker, a prime example of a member of this government conflating the crisis that we have, the national security threat, with some type of trade war rhetoric. But the reality is, and this minister should know, that the 2024 Criminal Intelligence Service Canada report shows that the number of crime groups producing fentanyl nearly doubled in 1 year between 23 and 24 right here in British Columbia. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, the City of Delta confirmed that less than 1% of shipping containers at BC ports are ever physically searched. It's no wonder that the FBI's director says that traffickers bypass the U.S. straight for Vancouver. We campaigned on this side to establish a BC Port Police Agency and to send the bill to the federal government. Will the Premier adopt our proposal or keep misleading British Columbians about the scale of this national security threat?
Minister.
The FBI Director, Kash Patel, is blaming Canada for all of their woes. The reality is, data from the U.S. Border and Customs Authority says, these are facts, you may not be interested in them, but they're important in this House. 6.3 kilograms of fentanyl were seized at the Canadian border in April, nearly 300 kilograms intercepted from Mexico. Do the math. It's not coming from Canada. BC Conservatives are again calling for a public inquiry into decriminalization and for the province to develop a fentanyl strategy.
Hold on.
One member opposite has also called for fentanyl trafficking to the U.S. to be declared a national security scandal. It's not. Get accustomed to the facts. 6.3 kilograms of fentanyl from Canada to Mexico, nearly 300 kilograms intercepted
Member
from
for Surrey
Mexico.
Cloverdale. House Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. DRIPA, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, was created to provide a framework for reconciliation. It ensures better informed policy making and helps address harms from the government where the government has historically failed to cooperate with Indigenous governments. However, the First Nations Leadership Council, as well as many other First Nations and local councils, have shared fundamental concerns regarding this government's tendency to repeatedly ignore its DRIPA commitments. DRIPA must be respected at every opportunity, not simply when it is convenient for this government. Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, how do you expect First Nations to trust that you are committed to reconciliation when you continuously fall short of your commitments to DRIPA?
Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question and the opportunity to talk about what I agree is an incredibly important piece of legislation that was passed unanimously in this House and that continues to be a focus and priority for this government. BC was the first jurisdiction in Canada to pass legislation to adopt the internationally recognized standards of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. These are, as articulated by the UN, the minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of Indigenous people. And we continue to do work in partnership with First Nations and Indigenous people across this province, guided by the Declaration Act Action Plan, an action plan that was co-developed and that we report out on annually in terms of the progress. I'm happy to report out on a bit of that progress now, in addition to a report that will be coming forward to this table soon. A great number of actions that we have seen improve the lives of Indigenous people and continue to be work we take on, and I look forward to outlining more of it.
Thank you, Minister. Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has displayed a troubling pattern of neglecting public consultation beyond just its failure to consult First Nations. This month alone, the UBCM and local governments have said they were not consulted on significant municipal issues, and environmental organizations have said they were not consulted on fast-tracked energy projects. It would seem that the only voices this government cares to listen to are the ones that agree with them. Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, how is this government ensuring that all interested stakeholders are meaningfully consulted, including those who might disagree with them?
Minister of Indigenous Relations.
Thanks, and again appreciate the question. Engagement and consultation are important pieces of how we do all of our work here, because we know that's how we get to success, is in partnership, and it continues to be a clear commitment of this government that partnership is the way that we get things done in this province. That includes working with local governments and my colleague for Housing and Municipal Affairs, as well as across government. We do that work in our local ridings as well as in our ministries. It is the same that reconciliation work is a cross-government commitment, and so it not only falls under my ministry, but each ministry of this government doing relational work, building partnerships to see things move forward that benefit all British Columbians. That's work we will continue to be committed to.
Member for Skeena.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbians with serious mental illness are being released from involuntary psychiatric care with no follow-up, oversight, or access to psychiatric support. And this government admits that they have no ability to track them or even know how many there are. After the Lapu Lapu Day tragedy, it was revealed that the suspect was one of those people on extended leave from involuntary psychiatric care. How is this anything but a catastrophic failure of care and accountability? When is this government going to put public safety first and stop releasing potentially dangerous psychiatric patients without proper care?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. And clearly, this is an issue that everyone in this House takes extremely seriously, because we know that people need supports at every stage of a recovery journey, and that includes whether it is substance use issues or serious mental illnesses. Mr. Speaker, one of the questions the member raises is around people who are released from a designated facility under extended leave, for example, and they are each attached to teams. Health authorities have the responsibility to ensure that those people continue to receive those supports from those teams, and they do exactly that. As part of that, they do track patients who are on extended leave, and I would be happy to tell the member more about exactly how many there are, and for how long, and when they are recalled to involuntary care early. Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to build out a seamless system of mental health care and supports for people experiencing illnesses, experiencing substance use issues, everything from early intervention, Mr. Speaker, to treatment and recovery and aftercare. Thank you.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the Minister, I don't know how that's possible when there was an article that was published this weekend stating that the government did say that that is not being tracked. We don't know how many people are on extended leave right now from involuntary psychiatric care. So something's not adding up there. I would be very interested to know what those numbers are and how you can provide supports to somebody when you're not tracking how many there are or who they are, because you can't fix what you refuse to measure. Mental health care in BC is a broken system that's been propped up by slogans and platitudes, and people are being discharged into communities that have no resources to support them. We're seeing the lowest mental health care worker to population ratio across all of the provinces and no solution in sight. When will this government take responsibility for the risks that they've created, for the patients that they've abandoned, and fix this system before more lives are lost?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And unfortunately, I have to reject the premise that the member is putting forward, because it's absolutely not true. And I'm very happy to correct the record on this issue. The numbers of people who are released on extended leave do change on a daily basis, but as I've already said, health authorities do track this. So I can affirm to the member and to the rest of this House, for example, that on May 20th, 2025, there were 5,915 people on extended leave in BC. This includes 910 in Island Health, 1,829 in Fraser Health, 652 in Interior Health, 322 in Northern Health, and 2,202 in Vancouver Coastal. Mr. Speaker, every single one of these people matters, and getting them the care that they deserve matters. That is why those numbers are tracked by health authorities. That is why those people have teams that are assigned to support them, to ensure that they have access to what they need, and why we will continue to do everything that we can to support these people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for West Vancouver, Capilano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parents, teachers, sports staff from all over BC are protesting on the lawns of the BC Legislature today. Some are in the gallery. They want to know why this government continues to underfund BC's education system. They want to know why in 2025, in communities like Surrey, firefighters have to fundraise for printer paper and paper towels. Through you, Mr. Speaker, can the Education Minister tell these parents, teachers, support staff who are here today why it's acceptable that on her watch, schools have to fundraise for basic supplies?
Minister of Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I want to begin by thanking all the parents from across the province and any of the partner organizations who are outside rallying today. It is absolutely important to hear voices from all across the province about our education system. And particularly, we share their goals of having a supportive, inclusive education system for all. I know that there are some boards across this province who are facing budget challenges this year. Not all, but there are some boards. You know, we have an incredibly difficult fiscal situation for every single family.
Members, please be quiet. Enough. Minister.
Every single family, every single nonprofit, every single level of government, every single business are facing the challenges of increased inflation and the threats south of our border.
Members,
what?
how many times the chair has to remind members, you have asked the question, let the minister answer. You may not agree with the answer. Just wait for your turn to ask next question. Please. Minister will have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. You know what? I wanted to provide a really good answer for the members, but they're clearly not interested in hearing. So you know what I will provide? A quote from the member opposite who just asked the question. When she was on CBC radio recently getting interviewed and asked repeatedly if she would increase and if the BC Conservatives would increase funding to education, do you know what the member said? Well, yes, no. You know what? Not necessarily add, but change how we do education. We're going to do learning pods. We're not going to necessarily have people in the classrooms. We're going to do it with technology so that students, not all of them, have to be with one teacher, 30 of them in a classroom. That's their solution, Speaker. We're going to continue to provide funding year after year, increase funding to education, because that's our values.
Shh. Member supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And thank you to the member for reminding me for some of the reasons that I got into education in the first place. Best practices. Best practices we're not doing right now. So that's what I would like to have in the future, best practices from around the world coming here. I would ask then if the minister would like to thank the people in person perhaps this afternoon, because they are here. For supportive, inclusive education, yes, we have seen an increase in inflation, but we haven't kept up with inflation. That's why we are underfunding in education right now. So through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Education, one of numerous concerned parents have contacted my office, one from Burnaby just this week, regarding the Burnaby School District's $4.2 million budget shortfall that is leading to a number of different educational cuts. She said she reached out to her MLA, the member from Burnaby North, about the elimination of the multi-age cluster class, a program which has nearly 100 students, 4 classes, specifically for neurodiverse and highly capable learners who need counseling, language support, and much more. She never heard back from her MLA or the ministry. So, Mr. Speaker, through you, why is the NDP Education Minister and this Premier leaving vulnerable students in Burnaby and BC behind? Because it's going to come back and bite us in the future. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. I have met the rally organizers already at lunch today. I got to spend time over the lunch hour with them. We had a long conversation about the concerns they want to bring forward and what changes they'd like to see in education, so thank you for that. You know, Honourable Speaker, I think it's really important to note that we have continued to increase supports, especially supports for diverse learners in our classrooms. In fact, we have more than doubled funding to support kids in need who need that extra support. I met with the Burnaby School Board last week and had a long conversation with them as well, spent an hour with them about the challenges that they are facing in Burnaby. You know, these are incredibly difficult fiscal times, Honourable Speaker. We are seeing the effects of inflation all across the globe. And in fact, the threats south of the border are significant as well. We wake up in the morning and the world is one way, and with the stroke of a pen, 2 hours later, the world is completely different. We as a government are going to continue to increase funding year after year because that's what we believe in.
Member for Surrey White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we're hearing from the minister that the reason Surrey is treated once again like a second-class city, the reason that she cannot give increased funding is because of south of the border. That is a line of rhetoric we're getting from this education minister today. Sad and desperate. Frontline workers, they're burning out. Programs, they're getting cut. Buses for kids with disabilities, gone. Band programs, gone. What we're seeing, students moving to shifts now. Hybrid learning, learning centers, wiped out. All under this NDP government watch, not even to mention the highest number of portables we've ever had in the city of Surrey after this government campaign. Not once, not twice, but to get rid of them all, we've got the highest now ever. Mr. Speaker, why does this minister continue to fail the kids in Surrey, the parents in Surrey, the teachers in Surrey, because she just doesn't understand that she needs to properly fund Surrey?
Minister of Education.
Thank you, Speaker. And I want to make sure that we send a very clear message that we value the education system, that we have increased per pupil funding from $9,000 when we formed government in 2017 to over $13,600. Every single student in Surrey receives that per pupil funding. Every single student across the province is treated as a priority as we ensure that we are creating environments where kids can thrive. I know the Surrey School Board is facing a challenging budget this year, and it's really unfortunate that
Members.
It's really unfortunate that the members opposite want to bury their head and pretend like there isn't increased inflation globally across the province and that we don't have a threat across.
Member for Surrey Cloverdale.
The official critic was asked if she would give more money, and she said, no, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to increase classroom sizes. So no, the BC Conservatives don't have a leg to stand on here. In fact, the Leader of the Opposition, when he was in government, he fought the teachers all the way to the Supreme Court. He closed 256 schools, including selling off 21 properties in Surrey. That is not what we do as a government. We continue to increase funding in education.
Members.
We continue to increase funding. I absolutely will continue to work with districts like Surrey. I meet regularly with the board chair, meet regularly with parents, with union partners, because we value the public education system, and we're going to continue to invest.
Member for Kamloops Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Talk about a government that is completely out of touch with their own commitments. It was this Premier that campaigned on education assistance for every K-3 classroom. Let's look at how that's going, Mr. Speaker. In Kamloops, they've had to cut 80 support staff positions this week, or last week, because of funding shortfalls from this government. Campbell River is having to make cuts. Nanaimo is having to make cuts. Burnaby is having to make cuts. Surrey is having to make cuts. The list goes on and on and on. Mr. Speaker, if this was one district having a financial issue, I could understand the minister trying to deflect away and blame the President of the United States for funding issues in education in BC. But Vancouver is having issues. In fact, Vancouver is no longer a living wage designated employer, their school district. All under this NDP's watch, Mr. Speaker. The simple reality is the minister can try to spin it any way she wants. Outcomes are worse. Supports are being cut. across this province, to the point we now have firefighters having to fundraise for school districts. And the minister seems to think that's acceptable. When will this government properly listen to the parents that are out on the lawn, the teachers that are out on the lawn, the school districts that are out on the lawn, and recognize that they have created a fundamental mess within the school districts from K to 12 in British Columbia, and actually start living up to their actual commitments and deliver what parents are demanding?
Thank you, members. Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. And I absolutely listen, which is why I just spent a lunch hour with those families, with those parents, with those partners, because we all have a shared goal of ensuring that we're providing the best education system to our kids that we can. Boards across the province, some of them are facing some difficult financial challenges and are making those tough decisions at the local level. That is a conversation those boards are having with their families in their local districts. I think it is so important to continue to recognize the challenges that we face. I know the official opposition doesn't want to accept that. But, Honourable Speaker, we have in a difficult fiscal time, an incredibly challenging, difficult environment, we protected...
Members, let the minister conclude. Members, let her conclude, please.
Globally,
Please conclude.
fiscal challenging times, we made the very important decision as a government to protect core funding for education. In fact, our budget increased by $300 million. That is our values. We are going to continue to work with our partners. We're going to continue to support education. Thank you.
The bell ends the question period.